It's a tale as old as time in the music industry at this point. An artist bursts onto the scene, seemingly out of nowhere. They have one or two songs out and there's really no information being shared about them intentionally. Maybe a video goes viral on social media and everybody starts listening. A lot of people like it, some people don't get it, but both of those groups are talking about it. The music industry YouTubers sigh, charge their camera batteries, turn their ring light on, open their script, hit record, and say, "Is so-and-so an industry plant?" Now, I've only been making videos on music for 5 months now, but I've been watching them for long before then. I have a great appreciation for the people who paved the way for me in this space. Patrick CC, Hivemind, Dev Lemons, Matty Balls, there's so many people that I've watched, and I appreciate. A few of those guys have made videos, along these lines, talking about industry plants, analyzing a new career and seeing how much of it is organic and how much of it might be manufactured or just straight up built off of lies and spending a lot of money. Today we're going to be talking about this 4Bats fella. You've probably seen the video of him with the shiesty on and the hanging mic, which went viral for several reasons. Partially because nobody expected him to sound the way he sounds while looking the way he looks, and also because this song itself is catchy and trendy and honestly pretty good. It fits in that Brent Faiyaz lane of R&B that has been just dominating with the younger audience. But the guy has 3 songs out as we speak, and the response to those 3 songs has been absolutely insane. After the first 2, he was on FaceTime with Kanye West, and after the third, he got a Drake remix. And by all intents and purposes, according to what we've been shown, he's still not signed to a major label. Alright, so of course I filmed this entire video, edited it, exported it, and I had it unlisted on YouTube. And then 2 hours later, they announced that 4Bats is signing to Drake and the OVO Sound label. Now, I know you might be saying, aha, this proves my point. He was an industry plant all along. But it doesn't prove that. It actually kind of does the opposite. So what I'm going to do for this video, because almost everything that I recorded for this video still applies, is I'm going to kind of like director's cut it. So if you see me in the green sweater, then you know that this is me coming after the fact to add more context because now we have it. I promise this video will still be informative and a good watch. Just stick along for the ride, you'll see what I mean. That's led to many people speculating that 4Bats is what we would call an industry plant. I think we need to start by defining that term. So according to the generally accepted definition, an industry plant is someone whose come up is manufactured or artificially affected, usually by a major label. Now, there are times where I do not agree with this classification. Being signed to a label, even if it's before you pop off, even if it's before you release a song, doesn't automatically make you, in my eyes, an industry plant. At least not in the derogatory sense, because the word is used as an insult. I mean, the label's job is to make the artist that they sign successful. And if you think about it, labels signing artists before they have a lot of buzz, they would probably be signing them because they think they're talented or marketable. And that might not be such a bad thing. It runs counter to the ways that artists have to constantly promote themselves on platforms like TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels and yell into the void until they get enough attention to build a fan base where the label will finally pay attention to them. In a lot of situations, artists need to have hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok or Instagram or wherever before a label will even give them the time of day, even if their music has been fire the entire time. And sometimes they'll have that many followers and the music will be ass and they'll get signed. Like, that doesn't seem like a great way to do it. If labels are gonna invest in artists just because they're talented, not because they come with a built-in fan base, that wouldn't be a horrible thing off rip, right? So for me, for the term industry plant to really hold weight in a conversation, then the artist needs to be like manufacturing or lying about their come up. Some examples could be artists in the past who have been kind of like straight up manufactured and admitted that, like Jumex or Baby Goth. In other cases, there's artists who might be bragging about being independent when they're not independent. I think that's whack. But that's a separate conversation from 4Bats, because I don't think 4Bats has ever said that he was like this get it out the mud kind of guy. In fact, he hasn't really said anything at all. He's basically just put the music out and that's been it. There's one caption where he's was sleeping on the floor, now I'm FaceTiming with Kanye, and that there's no reason that would have to be a lie. Even if he was signed to a major label with $1 million advance, doesn't mean there wasn't a point in his life where he slept on the floor. I don't really see that as any sort of evidence in any direction. We can compare this situation to some of the other classic, are they an industry plant situations, like Chance the Rapper, who would go out of his way to tell everybody that he was independent. If Chance was signed to a major label, that would have looked crazy. But 4Bats is not doing that. If I go online, I can't find a single thing about Nico Bennett, which is 4Bats' real name. It's funny that he has the same last name as Chance the Rapper, but I highly doubt that they're actually related. It's a pretty common last name. All Forbats has told us is that he's from Dallas, Texas, he likes wearing shiesties, and he spends a lot of money on his girl. Don't we all? So he hasn't really said anything about who he's signed to or who he works with, but this is pretty clearly not a one-man operation. His manager, Amber Baker, who had it in her bio before she took it out, probably due to the attention it was getting, is a lead creative manager at RCA Records. If you're not familiar with RCA, they are a part of a major label, they're under Sony, and they are one of the leaders in the pop and R&B space. Even if you don't pay attention to like the names of labels or whatever, like you probably listen to a lot of artists who are under RCA. The premise of the viral tweet that people have been arguing about for like a week now is that this connection is what Forbats is exploiting in order for his like career to explode. Here's what the tweet reads. Him and his manager are clearly working hard and know what the TikTok audiences want, so you have to respect it. However, acting like your unique selling point is being independent when you have industry contacts and the promo budget of a small country is a bit disrespectful to real indie artists. Now, I want to break this down from a few different angles. I understand why on the outside, seeing that someone's manager may work at RCA may make them think that the artist themselves is working with RCA or is signed to RCA, but that's really not the case. It makes plenty of sense from the outside, but I can tell you that that's not how it works. Managers of undiscovered artists or new artists or developing artists are often working at labels or in other industry positions in the music industry as a day job. I mean, just think about it. If an artist is not making enough money to live, then the person who gets 10 to 20% of what that artist is making is definitely not making enough money to live, right? We're following that logic? So they have to have a day job somewhere. And if you work in music and you want to work in artist development, it would only make sense that if you got a day job at a label, it would be a good fit. Plenty of undiscovered artists have managers that are working at labels, and they might even be signed to a label that is not the same label that their manager works at. It's way more common than you think. You can look at me as an example. I have two managers. They have a company together. One of them works with two giant pop stars. The other one was in a like Warped Tour band for years. And I work as a substitute teacher in a high school. You could look at them and be like, wow, like his career is just paved for him because he has managers. Like that is not at all how it works. And we're going to talk about that more in the video, but please just use me as an example. Like having managers who are connected does not automatically make your music just take off. Like it is a slow grind for most people. For Forbats, it doesn't look like it was a slow grind, but that doesn't make his music better or worse than anybody else's. But if you do want to support me on my journey in the music world, I'd love if you can throw me a like and subscribe. I post a video every week on Tuesdays, and if you want to see them early, go to my Instagram, HADJI Gaviota, follow me, and join my broadcast channel. I post all my videos in there one day early. So if you ever see someone comment and you're like, how did he do that? That's how. Cool. Back to the video. Of course, though, having these connections, the connections that come with having a manager who works at RCA, are helpful. By all accounts, Amber Baker is a great person to be working with. I've seen like colleagues and people who know her kind of like defending her in some of the tweets. Like, don't go at Amber because she's like fostered these connections. And like, yeah, like this isn't some like insidious thing. It's just like someone who works at a label who has developed relationships through working with other artists, finds an artist who is talented and is like, wow, I think I can use my connections to help this artist get where they need to go. What exactly is dishonest about that? I don't understand how that's dishonest. That doesn't mean that Forbats is signed to RCA. That means that he's working with somebody who happens to work there. That's it. Like, I know people want to draw like conspiracies and stuff, but like that's it. RCA especially does a great job with art direction and rollouts. And if you pay attention to any of the artists who are signed to RCA, like it would make sense after this video. Go look at the artists who are signed to RCA. Like you will be like, wow, yeah, okay, they are pretty good at this part of their job. And clearly she's knocking it out of the park. She and whoever else is on the team. The Forbats viral premise was built off the idea that like the music doesn't sound like what the visual looks like. He's there in the shiesty surrounded by dudes, but he's making this like sweet, buttery R&B music. Neither Forbats nor Amber Baker invented that concept. We've seen it multiple times in the past few years. The first example that comes to mind is RMR, who went viral in 2020 when he covered the Rascal Flatts song. And he was also wearing the ski mask, and he had his boys with him. It got a lot of attention, but it didn't like catapult RMR to where Forbats is right now. And it also felt like it was specifically done to go viral. I think that the Forbats song is like a lot more appealing to more people than the country rap crossover cover thing, which is still really great sounding. I mean, RMR is unbelievably talented, but like it makes sense that the Forbats song is like seeing more of a result from the viral moment than the RMR song is, because it's just more like enjoyable to listen to most people, and I'm included in that. If you've seen my video on country music, then you know like that is on the rise. Like you better get used to hearing stuff like that. But with that being said, I still think like the four bats kind of music is just going to be a little bit more palatable to the masses. Another artist that I really like named Mustafa the Poet went viral like a couple months after the RMR thing with his song Stay Alive, and it was kind of a similar premise. Like he's singing this like beautiful soft song, but he's like in his neighborhood with his boys, and like it's like, you know, it doesn't look like how it's going to sound to most people, which is why it got attention. Now there are some major differences here. One, RMR was wearing a mask in the video just like four bats, but he was also like actively hiding his identity and making that a part of his story. There were press releases, you know, that were like, this guy's worked in the industry for a long time and now he's making this anonymous career. It was like a part of the thing. I know he's not doing that now anymore, which I think is really interesting and cool, and it's like cool to see him evolve as an artist. But four bats is not doing that in general. He's never really tried to do that. His name has been out there the whole time. He's not intentionally hiding anything. He's just not saying anything. There is kind of a difference between those two things. So in that sense, I think the four bats stuff is a lot closer to the Mustafa stuff. Because like, well, the visual might have been what hooked you in. It's the song that keeps people coming back. People don't stream a song on Spotify. They don't call in and request a song on the radio because they like the video. People stream the song because they like the song. The video is just how they found out that they like the song. In four bats' case, it's like right in the wheelhouse of like what the R&B zeitgeist is right now. It's catchy, it's floaty, it's kind of melodic rap-ish, right? But it's loving, and it kind of sounds like it's in that Brent Faiyaz pocket. Like, people eat that up. It's no wonder that people are streaming it. So let's get the four bats timeline straight using the facts that we do know. He released the song Act 1 Stickers 99 on June 29th, 2023. This is a few months before the song actually blew up. The song was produced by Nick Dreams, Jomari, and Soleya. Nick Dreams has a BeatStars page up, so like it's entirely plausible that that's where four bats got this beat from. Not 100% sure. I don't think anyone's commented on that, but that would be my guess. I'm not 100% sure though. I don't know what the 99 means, but the stickers I get now because of the line, "We stuck together, you minds forever." I honestly didn't understand why that song was called that until I was doing this video. So the song came out in June. It was doing like modest numbers on Spotify. Like people were listening to it, but people weren't running it up the way that they were after it went viral. Four bats dropped his video for the song in October. And looking at the comments from the oldest to the newest, we can see the progression from like people I'm assuming are his friends or his associates commenting, to comments that say stuff like, "Thanks for doing this ad because this song is fire." Then it just becomes an onslaught of people saying he's next up. So clearly, first he posted it, and then people who knew him commented, and then they must have put some money into YouTube ads. This doesn't mean he's signed, by the way. Independent artists put money into YouTube all the time. I've spent some of my own money on YouTube ads before, but it does mean he had some money to spend. It could be his, it could be his manager's, it could be a label's for all we know. I don't think so, but it's possible. A few weeks after he posted his video, on November 24th, he appeared on the For Shooters Only channel for their From the Block series where they do the performances with the hanging mics. Sure, you've seen a bunch of them by now. This is the video that went really viral and blew him up. He had the shiesty on and the double cup in his hand, but he sounded buttery smooth. The dichotomy of it all really helped push the video on social media, much like RMR and Mustafa, the people before him. The difference with him is that this music was exactly what a lot of people were looking for. So they latched on and they started running it up. Just 2.5 weeks later, he followed it up with his second song, Act 2 Dated 8, which exploded and went even harder than Act 1 did. Probably because to me, it's a better song. It's really catchy. It does sound a little bit like Jackie Brown by Brent Faiyaz, but it's not like a carbon copy of it. So he went back on For Shooters Only to do a second From the Block performance for this song. And this is the video that just went into the stratosphere. He was holding money instead of a double cup, and he brought some friends with him. This video is sitting at 8 million views on their channel, which makes it the third most watched video on the From the Block channel. It's also like more than twice as popular as the Act 1 video was. He dropped a humble but, personable visualizer on his own channel as well, instead of going for like some crazy high quality budget production. So another thing that the Billboard article confirmed is that there was a bidding war going on, and that bidding war started around the end of December into the beginning of the new year. And part of that is because Act 2 exploded. Billboard refers to it as one of two songs that labels were chasing after. I mean, it charted, it got to like number 59, and it was still independent at that point. So on the timeline that we're working with here, we know that Four Bats was independent at least through releasing Act 2. Everything that comes after Act 2, like obviously the Drake remix, and maybe even Act 3, although I'm not sure, like that's probably a part of whatever licensing deal he was on, and everything that comes after that, marketing-wise, was probably driven by the team that he's now with. But with that being said, through the release of Act 2, he was doing this with whatever team he started with. Once the new year started rolling in, things really started picking up steam. In the middle of January, he posted himself on FaceTime with Kanye. And that was where he used that caption, "I was sleeping on the floor, but now I'm on FaceTime with Ye." Then at the end of January, some paparazzi ran up on Ye, and he co-signed Forbats again.
Any artists out there that impress you right now that are coming up?
Forbats.
The hype train was definitely not slowing down. And around this time, the industry plant voices started to get a little louder. He followed up all the hype with his third song, Act 3, On God, parentheses, She Like, question mark, close parentheses. This song reminds me more of like House of Balloons era Weekend, with like the way that he kind of like warbles his voice and like holds out notes and stuff. It's also in 6/8 instead of 4/4 for my music nerds in the chat, which just kind of demonstrates his talents in a slightly different pocket. The music video is similar to the other visuals he's put out so far. He's like with his boys, mobbed up like a rap video. The formula isn't really that complicated, but people are eating it up. So who's releasing it? Who's behind it? Who's pushing the button? Who's planting this man firmly in the ground like a big oak tree and just watering it with money so that it bursts out of the sky like the way the ground broke in like that scene in The Dark Knight where Bane breaks the football stadium? Let's entertain the industry plant narrative for a second and do some research. So checking the source on his releases in Spotify leads us nowhere, which makes sense because anybody can write whatever they want in that section. But we can do a little better on Google. Looking at radio logs of his music being played, the actual label / like distributor situation is displayed. Vidya and the LV LLC. So Vidya, for those who aren't familiar, is a music distributor. They're basically a company that allows people who want to start their own labels to come and like sign up with them and then make their own imprint, and then those people can distribute through them. But they're the service that actually connects you with the DSPs, the Spotify's, the Apple Music's, Titles, whoever, and actually submits your music to them and gets it approved. So no, Vidya is not like a major label situation. They're owned by a company called Gamma, which I talked about in the French Montana video a little bit, but basically the people at the top used to work at DSPs and work at labels, but this is not a major label. They're not connected to UMG. They're not connected to Sony. They're doing their own thing. That being said, obviously they are a reputable company, but that doesn't mean he's signed to a label. Let's look at the other thing we see in the radio log, the LV LLC. Googling that name leads to absolutely nothing. No Instagram page, no website, probably by design, but who knows. But it's not over. There's a site called TuneBat where you can type in a label name and then it'll show you all the songs on Spotify that have that as their source. So in the releases, I see an artist named AOX, maybe it's Aox, not really sure, I'm not familiar with his music. And then in one release by an artist named Jackson August, who I actually am familiar with, and that song is pretty dope. So searching LV LLC on Google also takes me to a music video by an artist named Fetish. I'm not sure if I can say that name on YouTube. It also says distributed by Vidya in the description of that video, which adds credence to the idea that Forbats, that artist, AOX, and Jackson August are all kind of releasing through the same label situation on Vidya. I could keep going from here. I could be like a detective and like really set up a thing and go through all of their following and see if they have anybody in common and try to really piece it all together, but I'm not gonna do that because it doesn't matter. So if you're super skeptical and you don't believe the Billboard article, you may be asking the question, what if he was signed to Drake the whole time? So like I said before, he wouldn't have had the leverage to get a short-term deal if he was signed to Drake the entire time. He would have been in one of those terrible contracts that we hear people talking about. Think about like the early Meg Thee Stallion contract with Carl Crawford. She didn't have as much leverage, so she signed this terrible deal and spent a lot of time trying to get out of it. So if Forbats was a part of that the whole time, he wouldn't be signing this short-term licensing deal. Another thing is that we know those songs were released by the LV LLC and Vidya. And whoever was running that operation at LV LLC and with Vidya or whatever, like, they're gonna get capital P paid in this deal. And that person is most likely not Drake. Like, Drake is not the mastermind of LV LLC. Like, I can tell you that right now. He just announced in January that OVO Sound Records is moving to be a part of the Sony family. They used to be under UMG, but now they're gonna be a part of Sony, under a thing called Santa Ana Records. Vidya is owned by Gamma, which is an independent company. It's run by people who've worked in music for a long time, but they have their own thing going on. They are not owned by Sony. They're competitors. And Sony has things that are like Vidya, like distribution companies. So if the whole time the plan was to get Forbats like artificially inflated and then sign him, like they would have just put him through the Orchard, which is their version of Vidya. It's a real company. I know musicians who release through the Orchard. It's a real thing. They would have just done that with Forbats, because then they wouldn't have to pay the other guys. So we know that whoever he was with Vidya on this independent small deal, like, that's not the same people that he's signing with now. That is my goal of this video. The knowledge of the music industry that I do have, I want to share it with the viewer. And the information that I have for you is that it doesn't matter. You can't just push a button and make an artist famous. People have to like their music. We can look at the money that Forbats has spent and try to analyze exactly how much is being spent here. He's posted 2 music videos and a visualizer, none of which are like crazy high budget videos from what I can tell. I'm gonna ballpark that at $5,000 to $10,000 for those 3 videos combined. Could be more, could honestly be less, but either way, it's definitely not like a Hype Williams video. You know what I mean? Like, this is not a crazy budget here. He spent some money on YouTube ads. We've proven that, with the comments, people saying that it's ads. But that's not crazy either. That's probably like, low 4 digits, I guess. Maybe he paid for some blog posts. That might sound crazy to a lot of people, but like in the mainstream music world, like that kind of stuff is happening all the time. So I would say that just falls under traditional marketing, and we will see some examples of marketing that we know for sure that he did according to other people. But for now, I'm going to ballpark that at anywhere between like a $10,000 to $40,000 on marketing that he spent so far. It's a big range, but at the end of the day, it's not like that much money in terms of like music industry funding. Look, that's a lot of money in general. If someone just came up to me and offered me that, like, it would change my year. But with that being said, like, it's not a crazy expenditure. It's not like oh my god, he's a plant kind of expenditure. Like, those kind of, I know artists that you will not know that are my friends who have gotten that kind of money in distro deals. Like, that is totally normal. He could have even funded that himself from like saving money at a job for a couple years and living at home, like assuming he's got like a life situation that allows for that. I know not everybody can just automatically do that, but it's within the realm of reach for like a lot of Americans to save up that kind of money if you really believe in yourself. So I'm not gonna just like fly the industry plant flag because he spent like somewhere in the 5 digits on promoting a song that was clearly catching on with people. Like, that's another big point. Like, just based on the streams that he has on Spotify, he has made back that amount of money 5 times already. So what is the conversation here? The one thing that really propelled him is the From the Block performance. Now you may say, I bet some industry connections made it easier for him to get on there. And you might be right. But with that being said, they post like 2 to 3 performance videos every day. There are a lot of artists who have done From the Block performances. A lot of the videos you probably just haven't seen because they didn't go viral. But they post a lot of videos. It's a lot like On the Radar. I know artists who have done On the Radars who are friends of mine that I can personally tell you are independent artists. They are doing it by themselves, and maybe with like a manager who might not even work at a label or something like that. Like, these are achievable milestones that Forbats has done. None of this is crazy, Like, he's not like singing the national anthem at the Knicks game or something like that. Like, this is all pretty normal stuff. And just looking at the performance, he has the 3rd highest video on the From the Block channel. The 2 that are in front of him, one of them is a G Herbo freestyle where the song is not on streaming services, so it probably has a ton of plays because people can't go listen to it anywhere else. And the number 1 video on there for now, though the Forbats video might honestly pass it, is the JMB Juvie video where he does his Wicked song a cappella, and that song went viral when he was freestyling in jail. So that video came in with some motion, with some momentum. You know what I'm saying? So he basically has, like, in terms of like straightforward performance video, he has the most popular video on their channel. Why is that? Probably because people want to listen to it. That's the thing about Forbats that seems to be confounding people so much. They're like, this must be planted, because it's not really that crazy. It's just good, catchy songs with a clean presentation. To be honest, the industry plant conversation is getting a little tired, because now we're just calling artists who are just doing normal stuff industry plants. When you saw the Baby Goths and the Jumexes, like, it made sense to be like, this looks crazy. What is crazy about Forbats, bro? He's just getting up there and performing a song, and it's doing well. Like, that's it. Just the fact that, I guess, like, it's become so hard for artists to break through, for new artists to catch attention, like, without like looking a certain way or sounding completely different from anything we've ever heard before, that like maybe people are just shocked that an artist actually just cut through by making music without like too much of a gimmick. Like, I guess like the performance video is like kind of a gimmick, but like, is it really? It's not that crazy. And I think that's what fascinates people. They're like, why is this going so viral? He's not saying crazy shit. He's not like doing antics on social media. I can't even comprehend this blowing up. But how is that on Forbats? He's not crafting an image. He's not selling anything. He's not pretending to be anybody. It feels natural, which I think is a big reason why people are coming back to it. Does having a manager who works in the creative department at RCA help? Absolutely. First of all, they may have helped him conceive the image that he's been running with since the video dropped. It looks like he dropped the song by himself. I'm not enough of a conspiracy theorist to imagine that they created the entire rollout from back in June. I would guess that he was probably discovered sometime in the summertime or maybe like the early fall. More on that later, but they probably did help him with the image. I'm sure they helped connect him with a really good creative team. It makes sense. His manager works in creative at a label. And if you look at who shot the video, you'll see that that's kind of an organic connection. The video was shot by a guy named Josh Flores, who has shot for a ton of artists like Smino and Saba. There's a post of his from February 2023 where Forbats' manager Amber is commenting on it. So obviously these guys know each other and they've known each other since before Forbats even blew up. So she probably discovered Forbats or was shown his music by somebody else and was like, hey, I think you'd like this. She was like, oh, I can help here. Starts working with him and then connects him with a videographer that she already knows. It makes perfect sense. And if you look at Forbats' cover for the song Act 1, it's like this fisheye lens cover. And if you go through the video of Act 1, there is no fisheye lens shot in there, which makes me think that Forbats did that himself or with whoever he was working with at the time they put the song out. And then he kind of revamped the creative direction once he started working with his manager, which makes perfect sense. But that doesn't make him like an industry plant in like the negative like way that people have been calling people industry plants, like, oh, you're a faker, you're a liar. Like, he's not faking or lying really anything. That's just a good, hardworking manager leveraging her connections to help a talented artist reach a bigger audience. She probably found him when the song came out. Like, for example, my friend runs a blog called Fashionably Early, and people go to Fashionably Early to find new artists, including people who work at labels, including A&Rs. And they posted Forbats in September. I was talking to my friend Kyle about it, and he was like, yeah, I don't remember where I found it, but I found it somewhere. It probably wasn't even submitted to him. So it was probably like getting on Discover Weekly playlist on Spotify. That's what happened to me. Like when I started putting music out, like the first time I started getting industry attention was my song getting on Discover Weekly on Spotify, and people started saving it. And before I knew it, labels were emailing me. So then at some time in October, you can see the team kind of start to assemble. There's a TikTok that's going viral that shows that a marketer was reaching out to people about Forbats around October 10th. So this is where you see a team maybe start to invest some dollars into his career. The video itself drops on October 19th, but they started spreading hype for the song or asking marketers ahead of time to maybe start sharing the song or maybe sharing an early version of the video and getting all of that ready so that when it comes out, it does a good job. Now, this is all stuff that independent artists can do too. Like, none of this is like only someone at a label can do this. Like, anybody with a plan can do this. I send my music out to tastemakers and people like before it comes out. I do that all the time. That's what a person who's preparing themselves well would do. He was referencing a bidding war in his Apple Music bio at least around like December. And I'm sure there was a bidding war over Forbats. He must have been unsigned in the first place if there was one. So he had industry people working with him, but he wasn't signed to a label. That's how it works. And yes, it really does move that fast. A song can go viral and people will be trying to sign you in 3 days. I have permission to use my friend Rob Apollo as an example in this. So my friend Rob has been rapping for years. We've known each other for a little while because we like each other's music and we're just genuine friends. Like, I was hanging out with him in Detroit like a month or two ago. I like his music. I hope he likes mine too. I mean, I think he does, but who knows? But either way, a month ago, he was just like you and I. He had like 3,000 monthly listeners. He has a screenshot of it. This is from February. A few months ago, I sent his song to an industry tastemaker that I know, and I didn't get a response. I posted his song on the KTT2 forum a couple months ago. Nobody replied. I did all that because I believe in him, by the way. I think this is fire. Then, a few weeks ago, he posted a TikTok rapping along to one of his songs. You might have even heard the sound by now. She wanted 5 guys seen talking about burgers, right? It got 2 million views. People started using the sound. It is the #1 trending sound on the TikTok app as I record this video. And every label is talking to him right now. I don't want to like go more in detail than that. Just trust me. Believe me. Trust me. Things are crazy. I only say that to show you how quickly this happens. Why would the same industry be slobbering over someone that they were ignoring a couple months ago? Because he has motion. It's much more likely you're going to buy company in a stock that is slowly starting to shoot up, or even faster than that, start to shoot up, than just buy some brand new company that's like this, right? I'm not Mr. Robin Hood over here. I just want to try to like paint a picture, right? You want to invest in something that's clearly going somewhere. And when you have numbers to back it up, it makes all the more sense that people are going to start trying to invest in it. People want proven success, and then they'll start throwing money at it. It's called motion. Forbats has motion. He acquired motion through a good strategy. Yes, he had access to good collaborators. Yes, he probably spent a non-zero amount of money on promoting himself. But so do so many independent artists. I think a lot of people on the internet are geared to start hating on artists when they start coming up for a couple reasons. One is that their trust level is so low in the industry, and I get it. I totally get it. We get lied to as fans, we get punked as fans, we get dragged along as fans all the time. I get it. I just don't see how Forbats is an example of that. The other side of the industry plant call is probably coming from a lot of artists who are like, how come it's working for him, but it's not working for me? And while I can also empathize with that attitude, I think it would be more effective to look at what worked for Forbats and then be like, how can I apply that to myself? Because fans don't listen to him because his manager works at RCA. They don't care. I don't pick a song based on who manages them. I pick a song based on if it's good or not, or if it gets in front of me and I like it. So look at what Forbats did and take notes instead of hating. Just off rip with Forbats, right? The image is clean. He's a good looking dude. That doesn't hurt. The music is trendy, but it's also not trend hopping. It sounds good. He has a good voice. The songwriting is good. It's not so complex that people can't connect with it, but it's also not so generic that people are going to forget about it. So the reason why it's going up so much is because Forbats' music has generated genuine conversation at every stop from the believers and the non-believers. First it was, wow, he doesn't look how he sounds, and people were making fun of him. People were being like, damn, this is fire. It was a mix of both. Then it was, wow, he did it again and it's even catchier. Or it was, I still don't get it, but both of those people were still talking about it. Then it was, wow, Kanye likes him. Someone introduced him to Kanye. He must be an industry plant, was half of the people talking, and the other half of the people were like, damn, he's going up. This is sick. Kanye has great taste. Is somebody in the industry introducing him to Kanye? Of course. But he earned that by having motion. It's motion that we all want. Motion. Motion. Then it was the Drake feature. Drake remixes artists all the time. I mean, he used to do it a lot more than he does now. But like, plenty of artists came out of nowhere. Some of them were independent. Ram Riddles. Like, Drake has remixed a lot of music in his career. So I don't think it's fair to like throw the industry plant tag on him just because of that. So all these different talking points, that every single time that there's a talking point or a conversation, people go and listen to the music and they either like it or they don't. But enough people like it that Forbats has continued to ascend. All people do when they're marketing is search and beg that they will be able to spark some conversation. Forbats has sparked conversation like multiple times. And it's without doing gimmicks. It's without running around like 6ix9ine. Like, it's kind of just all been like music related or image related, and it's pretty cool to see. So I'm sure we're looking at a big 2024 for Forbats, whether that means he's signed to a label, whether that means he's going to stick it out independent. So we do know what his year is going to look like. He's going to sign to Drake. He's going to drop an EP. It's not guaranteed success. You know, artists on OVO Sound have had varying levels of success. I mean, Majid Jordan, Party Next Door, very successful artist. And then you have artists like I Love McConan, whose deals did not work out. You have an artist like Plaza that they signed that like never really dropped anything with them. You know, Roy Woods has had a decent career. He's had that one moment on TikTok too. But like, it's not like a guaranteed like ticket to the top to be working with Drake. You know, he's done features with artists like Smiley and like Blockboy JB, and like they haven't like exactly been like dominating since then. So it's not like an automatic like ticket to the top. But I think sound wise, it's great. And I'm excited for Forbats. I also hope that we can just move on from accusing every artist with a little bit of motion of being an industry plant and start thinking a little more critically. Just because people in the industry are working with him does not mean he's a plant. Enjoy the music or don't. That's kind of it.